Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Tom Aiken from Boom Life. Welcome to BoomShare, episode number 9. Today we have Danny Beyer. We do this series to share stories about people who are doing great things. And Danny is a networking specialist and bow tie aficionado who has achieved success in both his personal and professional life through networking. He's a keynote speaker on networking and building real connections, and the author of the new book, The Ties That Bind, Networking with Style. I have a copy here. I've read it, and it's a great book. So want to get your plug in early for you, Danny. Welcome to BoomShare, and why don't you tell us about yourself and your story?
Hey, thanks, Tom. I really appreciate the invite. Hi, everybody out there in internet land. My name is Danny Beyer. I wrote The Ties That Bind, Networking with Style. More or less, when I started in 2008 doing sales, I was doing a lot of cold calling. I was doing a lot of door-to-door, pounding the pavement, and it just wasn't a lot of fun. And so I started building this network. I started building a referral base of people who could send me business. Through the years, that network has grown. It has expanded. It has gotten bigger. It's gotten better. And I've learned that it's not just about business. It's not just about professional things. I'm now getting success both in my personal life, in my nonprofit life, and everything just because of this network. I wrote the book, The Ties That Bind, Networking with Style, because I hear so many people tell me, Danny, I don't get networking. I don't like networking. Networking's not for me. I wanted to show that we're all networking all the time. What you and I are doing right now, Tom, is networking. Going out to the bar after work is networking. Going out with friends to movies on the weekends is networking. It doesn't have to be a structured event. It doesn't have to be something formal with guys in bow ties. We're all networking all the time. Anytime you're exchanging ideas, anytime people are getting something from a conversation, building relationships, you're networking. And once you become conscious of that, it's much easier to feel better about networking and realizing that networking isn't just this scary thing that guys in suits do. We all do it, and we're all very natural at it.
Hey, talk about networking in terms of how that does translate into business. It's not what most people think, where you go meet somebody and close a deal the first time you meet them. Talk a little bit more about the relationship side of that.
Right. That's probably the biggest response I get. Well, I don't have time for networking. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Networking does take time. You have to put in the efforts. You have to want to get to know people. You have to build those real relationships. The biggest tip that I give to people when I'm talking or when I'm presenting or when I'm just having coffee with someone is don't talk about work. Instead of asking people what they do for a living, ask people what they do for fun, what they're passionate about, what they do on the weekends, or like you started this interview with, what's your story? And then just sit back and listen. Let the person tell you what their story is. The reason I say this is because I've done a lot of research for my personal life as well as for the book and other things. Turns out roughly 69%, 2 out of 3 people you meet don't actually like their jobs. And so starting that conversation with what do you do, you're almost inherently asking the person sitting across from you to talk about something they don't like. And I don't know about you, Tom, but I don't want to start off the conversation that way. I would much rather ask someone to tell me their story, ask them what they do for fun, and then just sit back and let them decide where the conversation goes. They can talk about work if they love their work. They can talk about running, writing. They can talk about their kids, about riding horses, whatever they're really passionate about. And you really get to learn who that person is. I do have people say, but Danny, we're there for work. If I just talk about fun stuff, work's never going to get done. The thing is, once people are done sharing their stories, once they feel like they've built a relationship, they're inherently going to ask you what you do for a living. They're not going to let that meeting, that chamber event, whatever you're at, they're not going to let it end without business coming up. The great part about waiting for business till the end is now they're actually going to listen to what you have to say versus just thinking about what they're going to say once you stop talking.
That is a very powerful secret you just shared there, Danny, and I hope I remember it. So
I'm sure you will.
Tell us a little bit about the values that drove you to start this in the first place. How do your values drive your efforts with your networking with style? Sorry, that's not the name of the book. The book is The Ties That Bind, and in your efforts at helping people understand about networking.
I would have to say that the two values that kind of push me forward and continue to push me forward is the work ethic that my parents instilled in me. I grew up in a small town, Iowa, on an acreage, and my dad never took a day off work, even on the weekends. He was always working. He was always busy. He was always doing something with his hands or making something better. I've taken that, and it drives everything that I do today. I laugh with people that I don't know how to relax, because I feel like when I'm relaxing, I'm not being productive. And so it just drives me forward and helps me continue to build and to make things better. The other value that I love that they gave to me was just their selfless need to give, their selfless desire to want to help people. We went to Boys Town when I was in 3rd grade, and my parents became house directors where they had 13 at-risk teenagers living with them because they wanted to make a difference. They wanted to impact the community. They wanted to impact lives. It didn't have to be that they touched 1 million, 100 million people. They were good helping 10 kids have a better success or have a better chance at being successful. And so that's something that has been ingrained in me. I end every cup of coffee I have, every meeting, every networking event with the question, how can I help you? Because I really do want to help the person sitting across from me. And if it's in my power, I will follow through and make sure I help them with their request.
So how are things going so far since you started this endeavor with speaking and writing about networking, Danny?
It's been incredible, Tom. I'm sure, as you know, with writing a book, it's terrifying. You write the book, you hand it over to editors, and you wait to get your dreams, your ideas, everything ripped apart. And they kind of do. But then you get that finished product in your hand, and it's amazing to hold it for the first time. I liken it, and my wife doesn't like this reference very much, but it's almost like holding my very first kid the day she was born. So I love the fact that I can share this message with so many people. Sales have been great. Speaking gigs have started to come and continue to come. The more times I give these talks, the more people I hopefully inspire, the more I get asked to continue to do it. So it just kind of continues to spiral upward. I haven't reached the end yet. I don't know when I'm going to reach the end, but I hope it's not for a long time.
Well, I hope so too. So has there been a time yet where, maybe you've had a challenge that you can even think back to before you wrote the book, before you started speaking, where you had a challenge and had to rely on those values you talked about and how they help drive you through, kind of working through all the pain and suffering of overcoming the challenges?
Yeah, the book actually, the inspiration for the book and for everything goes back to that first year in payroll sales. It goes back to when I interviewed, made it through the interview process, got the job, and was so excited to be starting my first business-to-business sales career. Got into the industry and realized it was a lot harder than I was anticipating. I got a lot of no's. I got a lot of telephones hanging up on me. I got sworn at in people's business when they had the no soliciting sign out in front, and I just ignored it and walked through the door. And it was hard. About halfway through, I looked at myself and I said, okay, you've got to make a decision now. You've either got to put in the work and really make this work, or you're going to have to look for another job. You're going to have to go find a new career path. And I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to turn it in that early. I knew that I had it in me to make it through, and that I could go ahead and be successful in this business if I just rethought about some of the ways I was doing things. And so put my nose to the grindstone, really started to bat down and make those calls, build that network, use that work ethic, put in more hours than I had been, and go back to determine what I wanted to do. And in the end, it's been great. Getting through that 6 months, that next 6 months, the last 4 years, I can all say are to that point when I looked in the mirror and said, okay, you're either going to have to do this and do it well, or you're going to have to find something else to do.
In that second value you talked about of helping people is actually a tricky one. I always say that the greatest gift someone can give you is allowing you to help them. And so I imagine that's another value that's driven you through those hard times, at least the desire to create conditions that allow you to help other people.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. One of the talks I give, I talk about all the time that it's hard to tell people what you want. It's hard to ask people for help, more or less because it makes you incredibly vulnerable. If you share those ideas, if you share those thoughts, you're opening up yourself to criticism. You're opening yourself up to actually be held accountable for something. At the same time, if you want to scream out a dream, if you want to scream out a goal or something to the world, there's not very many people listening right now. And so to be that person who asks, how can I help you, and sit back and listen and maybe give someone an opportunity to just voice that goal or voice even just that little tiny idea, I'm hoping will make an impact somewhere along the way.
So Danny, what's next? Any new dream you want to scream out to the world here on our 9th episode of BoomShare?
The big one that I'm working on right now is I finished the first book, and the biggest criticism that I've gotten is that there isn't a specific chapter on networking for women in the book. And I laugh and say, well, I can't write that chapter. I'm not a woman. But it did give me another idea. I'm actually in the process of co-authoring my second book with a very close female friend. We're going to write a book. We don't have the title or anything yet, but it's somewhere around networking between the sexes. Because we want to analyze and look at what the differences are for men versus women, and how we network together. So that's probably the big one. I don't have a timeline or anything. We're honestly just in the first draft kind of outlining stages right now. But I think that's going to be a fantastic study and hopefully a fantastic book at the end of it.
So Danny, what do you need? How can people who are watching this help you?
I tell everybody the same thing. I love talking to cool, interesting people. And the secret is almost everybody. In fact, I truly believe everybody is cool and interesting in some way. And so if you'd like to get coffee, if you'd like to do a Google Hangout, if you'd like to have a phone call, feel free to reach out to me. Tell me your story and let me know how I can help you. Or if there's anything you want to do with me collaboratively, I would love to hear about it. Everything that I am doing today, writing the book, doing my MBA, having success at work, is all because of the people who surround me. I couldn't do any of this on my own. And so the more exciting and fun people that I'm surrounded by, the better hopefully I can make them, because I know they're making me better.
So how can people get in touch with you, Danny, if they want to have coffee or get on a Google Hangout with you?
The easiest, my email is just Danny@DannyBeyer, DannyBeyer.com. Or all of my other contact information is out on my website, DannyBeyer.com. Really creative name.
Hey, well, it helps keep things easy for some of us who don't know how to remember the website and the guy's name at the same time, because we met him at the coffee, on Friday, and now who was he?
Yep.
Anyway, Danny, thanks so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your insights. And before I close off and say goodbye to everyone, I just want to double check if there's anything else you wanted to share today.
So much, Tom.
Okay, Danny, have a great day. Thanks a lot. Everyone else, we'll see you next time in BoomShare number 10.